Welcome to part 5 of Build a WebSocket Server with NestJS. In part 5, we're going to be looking at using rooms. So in the previous video, we talked about namespaces and we split our code out into different namespaces. In this video, we're going to take one of those namespaces, the chat gateway, and we're going to add rooms to it that people can join and leave, and they'll only get the messages if they are actually a member of that room. So let's jump in and take a look at what we're going to build, and then we'll dive into the code directly thereafter. In the previous video, we had built up a very basic chat app, and we had that chat gateway and we had an alert gateway. So on that chat gateway, what we're going to do in this video, and this is a preview of what it's going to look like, we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to add some rooms down here. And for each room, it'll say whether you're joined or not, and then you can toggle whether you're a member of that room, right? So right now, we're in the general. It says it's joined. I can leave. It changes to not joined. I can join it back, and I can do the same for these others, right? So this makes a little bit more sense if we pull up multiple tabs. So let's say hello. Okay, so that's working. Let me duplicate this tab, and this guy we'll call John. All right, so if I'm over here, let's see. So John's getting that. Right, so we're both a member of this general room. Now if we were to go over to TypeScript here under Bob and join this room, and then I'll go to TypeScript for John too, but leave this not joined, right? I can say anyone here, and he's not getting the message. Now once I join, now you can see that the messages are coming in, and then I can reply back. We can see that it's here. And also if you leave a room, or if you're not a member and you try to send a message, we're just gonna pop up an alert saying, hey, you got to join the room, but in order to send a message. So this is what it's kind of going to look like in the end. I just want to get you a little bit of basic preview to hopefully help you conceptualize in your mind what we're building as we dive into this code and work through the changes required for this. So this is where we left off in the previous video. If you don't have access to this, then you can look for a link in the description, and I'll have a link to the repo if you're just starting out on this video and don't really care about the previous stuff. There's only two files we're really going to be messing with, and that is the chat gateway and the client in the index HTML file. So in the gateway, right now, all we're doing is logging initialize when it inits, and then whenever we receive a message, we just emit it to everyone on the namespace right now. So one of the first changes we want to do is only emit to a couple of rooms, to a certain room when we send the chat, and of course we'll need to add in the room into the parameters here. So maybe we go ahead and do that. So we've got that, and then the way we emit to, instead of to the entire namespace but just to a specific room, is we just put the 2 in here like that, right? So then I'll say message. Oop, I'm misspelling things. .room, right? And yeah, that looks good there. Not much else to do. Now we do need to add 2 more message handlings, right? And that's to join and leave a room, right? So why don't we just kind of cheat so I don't have to type so fast, and we're going to call this join room, and then let's make another one down here, and we're going to call this one let's just call it leave room. This can be anything you want it to be, but I'm going to name it handle join room. And then as usual, we're going to get a client. And then we just want to know the room name, right? So it's going to be similar below, so I'm just going to copy and paste here. Except for this one, we're going to call leave room. Okay. And then on here, all we have to do is on the join one, say client.join room. Easy enough, right? And then down here, same thing, client, but we're just going to say leave room. Now, one thing to talk about here is namespaces versus rooms. The client knows when it connects to a namespace and when it's disconnected from a namespace. If the only thing we were doing, you know, if we wouldn't want to implement the on-gateway connection or disconnection just to send a message to the client that happened, because they can already detect that on the client side, right? But with rooms, it's a little bit different. Everything happens server side, and the client only knows about it when the server communicates that you know, a join or a leave has been executed on a room. So let's do that. Let's actually, after we join it, let's do a client emit. And remember, if we're not doing the WebSocket, if we're doing an emit off of here, this is only going to go to that specific client, no one else. So let's call this joined room, and then we'll just pass the room, right? I'm just going to paste this down here. Put this one, we're just going to call left room, right? And that is about it as far as the chat gateway is concerned. So, you know, now just to recap really quick before we move into the client, because that's where a lot of our work is going to be. You know, now instead of emitting to the entire namespace, which the namespace is the chat, right, that they're connected to, now whenever it receives a chat, it's going to actually receive the room as well, and we're only going to emit that chat to that specific room. And only people who are joined to that room will actually receive it, right? And then we just added the two events, join room and leave room, at which we will actually execute that join, which is very simple, just client.join or client.leave. And then we're going to emit back to the client so the client knows that they've joined a room or left a room. And with that, I think it's time to move over to the index.html. So when I take a look at the index.html where we have our client, there's a couple of things that we need to do. The first thing that sticks out is we need to add those buttons at the top of the page for the, you know, choosing the room and to being able to join or leave each room. Right now we're just showing a list of messages. We need to split that out for rooms. So that means down here, instead of just having a single message array, we need to have 3 separate arrays, one for each room. We're going to have to add in the room and some of our emitting, and then we're going to have to catch a few more events down here and handle them. Other than that, yeah, let's go and get started with a template. So let's come where you see this form right now, and then right below it, and I'm just going to paste this in because this is just some HTML. We'll discuss it. So we have a tab row. Just added a class so we can add some padding or margin on there. We have a tab button, and then this is some view stuff, right? So you have the class, which this will always be applied, and if you pass an object like this, binding it, you know, for the class binding, then you basically put the class, and then you put some, you know, boolean or statement that's going to return a boolean, right? And that determines whether or not that class is actually active, right? And then we add some click listeners on here so that anytime that we click on this, the active room, which is a variable we have yet to create, is equal to, and then I've basically just got the names of the rooms in text. And then below it we have a status. It'll show whether or not the member is member of active room, which is a little computed property we're going to make. And on clicking, it toggles the room membership, which is a method we're going to make. And I don't think there's anything else in the template. Well, yes, we're going to have 3 different messages. So we're going to do something like active room. Helps if you actually put it between the braces, doesn't it? Active room, right? And then with that, I believe our template is done. Look over it real quick. Yeah. Okay, so first thing is we probably need to add in this active room variable, and we'll just have it default to general. And then we need to come up here. Let's change this to an object which has some arrays in there. So I have one for general, one we'll call the next room TypeScript, and then we'll call the final room NestJS. Looks good to me. All right, and then we're gonna track which rooms we're actually joined to by making another little object. There might be a better way to do this, but this is quick and easy. Let's do the same thing. Actually, I can just copy this, but instead of arrays, we're just going to have some Boolean values. And it starts out that we're not joined to any of them. So let me make this false for each one. Okay, that looks good. What do we need to do in our methods? Well, before we actually get started on that, let me go make this computed property. And this, what I do is I just, if you're not familiar with Vue, I'm just going to put a little method down here. We're going to call it isMember. I've already got it saved in my history. And then we're going to return dot rooms, and then we want to access this dot active room, right? So anywhere in our template, we can access this just like it's a property. It's basically a computed getter. All right, so let's actually come up here in our methods and see what do we need to add in here. Well, for one thing, when we do a receive, which one to work on first? Maybe the send chat message. That way it'll make more sense. So now, first thing we want to do is check if user is a member of active room. Because if they're not, we want to just throw up an alert, right? So let's say if this dot is member of active room, using that computed getter down there, then we want to this dot socket dot chat dot, I'm actually repeating what I see there below, emit. We're basically going to do this. Let me just actually copy this line. And what we need to do is we've got the sender, we've got the message, we've just got to add in the room, it looks like. Room. And then we'll say this dot active room. So now we're passing to the back end, we're just passing in what room this message is for whenever we send a chat message. Make sense? Good. All right, else, what do we want to do? Oh, wait. Yeah. You must be a member of the active room to send messages. Okay, so we enter some text in. The changes we made here is we're just checking to make sure this person is a member of the active room. If they're not, we throw up an alert. Otherwise, we'll do just what we did before, but the only difference is we're passing in this room because now the backend expects us to send the room when we send that, right? Okay, clean that up, and now let's do the receive chat message. This is basically the same, except we need to just access the object that we want to push this message into. So this the room gets passed into the back end, right, on send chat message. Let's go there really quick and take a look at it. We receive it here, and then we emit a chat to client, and we say to a particular room, right? So then we receive this on the front end, and we're going to receive that message. And now that we've got that room variable, instead of doing just this messages, we need to say which one we want to access here, right? To push that in, which array do we want to push that in? So we just added that. So on the receive chat message, it'll get pushed to the message list for that particular room. Let's see. Now we had up in our template toggle room membership. That's what we want to do. So let's go down here. Say toggle room membership, and we don't need to pass anything because it's going to get which active room we're active in right here. So let's say if. So let's find out what the current state is, so we'll know how to toggle, right? Then this dot socket dot chat dot emit, and we're going to say leave room, right? Because if they're a member of the active room, the toggle function is going to be to leave it. This dot active room. Okay. And let's just do a quick else and say otherwise we want to do the same thing, except for we want to join room. Okay, let me quick work of that. And now the only thing that's left is to hook up some events, right? So we start out that we're not joined to any room, but what we all actually want to do is we want to join that general room when we first start. So why don't we come down here and say, actually the chats are up here, so let me move up here. Dot socket dot chat dot own. What do we call them exactly? Joined room and left room. Okay. Oh, that's not even what I need to put there. I'm so silly. Here, what we want to do is on connect. So remember, with namespaces, when we connect to this namespace up here, the client we don't need the server to tell us when we connect and disconnect. We pretty much know that already. And I can trigger anything off that event by just using connect. Okay. So on the connect, we want to just do this dot. All I have to do is just this right here, right? Because we know that we start out with all of them false. We're not joined to any room. But at the same time, we know that when this first boots up, when you first load this out, it's going to say that the active room is general. So if we want to join that general room, all we really have to do is call the toggle room membership. Now what's left? What's left is what I was just about to do with that one, and that is address the join and left rooms. So on joined room, and that's matching up in our chat gateway to this right here, joined room. This one would say this dot rooms. Room, actually, yeah, because I'm going to, yep, there we go. Equals true. And now let's just duplicate this and make a couple of changes. Left room, false. And that, I think, is it. Let's do a real quick run through to make sure. So up in our template, we have a row. When we click, it's going to make the active room, it's going to change that to the room that we want. It's going to have an active class that we need, so we need to add in that CSS. That's right. I'll copy and paste that in. That's just a tiny little bit. Here we can see whether or not they're a member of active room, and by clicking on this, it toggles the membership. Yeah. We're going to loop through whichever room is actually selected at the top. That's the messages that are going to show. Let's see. We've got our messages here. Okay, looks good. Let's just add in a bit of CSS. And I think it would probably make more sense if I just pasted this in. So this is all I'm adding to our CSS, right? So the tab row, I just want to throw a little padding on the top, and then whenever the tab button is active, and we're just going to change the background to blue and the text to white. So let's save that, and then let's go check out the front end and see if everything's working like we think it will. So let's check out our work, see how things went. So I'm going to type in Bob for the name there. Okay, so we start out in the general channel, just like we wanted, and it's highlighted blue. We can switch channels here, or rooms. We can leave, yep, or we can join. Good, it seems to be working on the surface. Let's type in, well, actually first let's duplicate the tab. And let's make this one John. And we can just give a hello. So we can see that John and Bob are both joined to the general channel. Now if I go to, say, TypeScript for both of them, that channel, right? And I'm going to try to send a message. And I get the alert as expected. If I join the room and send it, we can see that John didn't get it, but I'm going to click join for John as well. Click over here to Bob. I'm going to say hey again, and we should see it this time. That is correct. Okay, and we could do the same for the NestJS channel that we created. So this is from NestJS room. Okay, and then if we come over here, we see that it's nothing, but that's what we expect because it wasn't joined. The moment that we join, then we can join in the conversation. And I'm having a jolly old time talking to myself in a chat room. And with that, we have reached the end of our series. So to review, we built up a basic WebSocket server in the first video. In the second one, we focused on building up a basic client. Third video, we took a brief look at the advanced options and configurations you can do when booting up a WebSocket server in NestJS. And then we looked at splitting up our code into separate gateways under separate namespaces. And finally, in this video, we looked at how within a namespace we can use rooms to group message traffic together. I know this wasn't a polished project. That wasn't really the intent of this series. What I wanted to do is just walk you through how to use gateways in NestJS to set up the server and handle the basic emitting and catching those events and handling them on the server and relaying the information back and forth to the point where you could insert something like this into your own application. If we build up a project, there would be a lot more logic that we'd be throwing in there, but that logic would be different depending on the project you're doing. I was hoping to really stick to the basics. And I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you learned something.